Welcome to the Kandid shop. We speaking on things you not. Just press play and let it rock. Hey, welcome to the Kandid shop. Whoa, welcome to the Kandid shop. We speaking on things you not. Just press play and let it rock. Hey, welcome to the Kandid shop. Oh, feel like we going through mad things. Gotta keep it real when they choose not. We gon' talk about it when the news drop. Welcome to the show where you know we don't fake this. Keep your opinion to yourself if it don't make sense.
Hola, Podcast Nation. It's your girl, Candidly Kristen, and this is the Kandid Shop. This is part 2 of our social media machine series, and we are going to do a little bit of a deep dive into cyberbullying, cyberstalking, harassment, and things you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones when they're online in general, but particularly on social media. I have joining me for this candid discussion this evening, Miss Diana Graber, who is the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World, Helping Kids Build a Healthy Relationship with Technology. She is also co-founder of CyberWise, aka No Grownup Left Behind, and she's the founder of Cyber Civics, a popular middle school digital literacy curriculum, which is currently taught in schools in 48 U.S. states and internationally. Diana holds an MA in Media Psychology and Social Change, and I'm going to ask you about that a little later because I never heard of that. Our second guest is Carling Middlestead. Carling is the founder and one of the hosts of I Did Not Sign Up for This podcast. She is also someone who has had personal experience with cyberstalking and harassment. So I want to welcome both of you, Diana and Carling, to the Kandid Shop. Yay! Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, I wanted to do this episode as it was only a 2-part series. So this is the second in a 2-part series because I think that social media and online interactions is a big thing now. The pandemic kind of put us in a bubble where face-to-face and real-life interactions were minimal, if at all. So people were online a lot more, and I think it exposed some of the downfalls to social media, the lack of support or security when you're online. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about cyberbullying, cyberstalking, what those terms mean, and how we can be more safe when we're online. I'm a researcher, so I went to Pew Research Center because they're my favorite place to get data. And they did some research they did a general online harassment. They do online harassment, and then there are 6 key ways that they measure it: physical threats, stalking, sustained harassment, sexual harassment, offensive name calling, and purposeful embarrassment. 41% of Americans have personally experienced some form of online harassment in at least one of those 6 key ways. And they compared it with data from 2017, and there was somewhere around a 15% increase. So I guess what I'd like to ask both Diana and Carling, in your experience, the cyberbullying, cyberstalking, cyber harassment in general, does it stem from the same things as regular bullying stems from, or is there another component to it that perpetuates this kind of activity amongst people online and social media? And either one of you can go first.
Well, I'm happy to jump in. Can you hear me okay?
And this is
Diana.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. This is a subject that I teach primarily to young people. And what we have seen from the research, interestingly, is it's the same kids bully offline are the kids that often bully online predominantly.
Okay.
So it's kind of a crossover from real life. And believe it or not, it kind of dropped during the pandemic. And people
Really?
think which was surprising to a lot of people because we figured with more kids online, there'd be more cyberbullying. But
Right.
the data that's coming in, it looks like actually there was a bit of a drop. And I think that just underscores the correlation between offline and online cyberbullying because it's kind of the same kids that are engaging in it. So they weren't doing it at school, so it didn't extend into the online world, which I
Got
guess
it.
one way to look at it is kind of good news, right?
Kind of a good thing.
Right, right.
So when the Pew Research breaks it down, physical threat, stalking, sustained harassment, sexual harassment, offensive name calling, purposeful embarrassment, and it goes from most severe with the physical violence, stalking, that kind of thing. Those first four being severe, and the less severe being offensive name calling and purposeful embarrassment. In your work, what do you see more of in terms of cyberbullying? And I guess we need to distinguish between cyberbullying and cyberstalking because I think they are two separate things.
You know, what I distinguish between is really cyberbullying and digital drama, because a lot of times people see something mean online and they think it's cyberbullying, but it's really not. And so the
Right.
big distinction between those two is cyberbullying is harmful, as is cyberstalking, obviously. And
Got it.
digital drama, which is like the tiffs and arguments, is hurtful. So
Right.
that's a
Okay.
big difference right there. And you ask what's more predominant right now, believe it or
Right.
not, the last thing on your list, the offensive name calling, or what we call hate speech, that's what's grown most over the last 2 years. We've seen an uptick in hate speech. And hate speech is usually speech directed at somebody because of their gender or race or ethnicity. So
Okay.
that kind of just speaks to where we are in our culture right now, which
As a
is
society. And do you think there are underpinnings of what was going on in the political
yeah.
arena, say from the last presidential election to now?
Yeah. I think it
Yeah.
normalized it. I think name calling and being cruel online seemed okay because people in high places were doing it. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, this must be normal behavior. And I know that really happens with children because they look to adult role models to find out how to
Mm-hmm.
act online. And that's what they were seeing. So
Right.
unfortunately, that's what's been happening. So
Okay. I want to go to Carling because I'd like for her to share, if she would like to, and I hope she does, share her story, her experience with cyber harassment, stalking, that kind of thing. Carling?
You bet. I started a whole podcast based on my
Sure did.
experiences. So I am always eager to share my own experience and listen to other people's experience because I think we can really learn a lot from it. I can't remember if we talked about, ironically, I have too many examples, but we talked about when I was a kid, when sort of, I would say, AOL being the first social media
Hmm.
really came out, or later on as an adult when I left an abusive marriage. I sort of have two different experiences that I could talk about.
I actually, because a lot of our listeners are parents of young children, and I think it's important for them to recognize red flags. So if you could share your childhood story first and then further on in the conversation, give us the adult cyber stalking story, that'd be awesome.
You bet. So back when I was 12 was when sort of I think internet was really starting to be inside homes. And
Hmm.
I remember we got the dial-up internet and we signed up for AOL. And there was no such thing as internet safety because the internet was new for everybody. It's funny to look back on it hindsight because I can see everything that my parents did wrong, everything that I did wrong that we, can really learn from. And I think
Right.
Diana, like your book was probably derived from these cautionary tales. And so when I was 12, I was ripe for the picking, I think, when I met Predator online, for lack of a different term. I was like, I was self conscious. I didn't have a ton of friends. I was bullied really badly. It was just in junior high. I was the youngest kid. Me and my sister weren't close. And I think my parents saw the internet as a great place for me to find myself. And I was interacting with people from all over the world. I had never, like met an American before. I'm from Canada. And
Right.
so you suddenly had this instant access to all these people. And I remember talking in group chats, and anybody I think who's over 30 remembers like ASL, like age, sex,
Yeah.
location. And so, and so I was like 12, free female, Calgary. And this one person specifically groomed me and became my friend. And we had, I put in quotes, so much in common.
Hmm.
And I think I remember knowing he was older because I knew he could drive.
Hmm.
And after a few months, my parent, I didn't really talk to my parents much about like who I was talking to, but I would say, oh, I met this kid in Spokane and he's 15, and oh, I met so and so. And so I don't remember specifically hiding it from them necessarily, but also not saying like, oh, this 25-year-old guy is my friend. And I remember one time he said, I'd really like to take you to a movie. And I just thought, like, what a great experience, like to go see a movie, how fun. And this was like sort of the first time I had to fib to my parents. And I told my mom that I was going to go to the mall to meet with my three best friends. And it was just like a little community mall, like a strip mall. And my one mistake in that, which is probably what saved my life, is that I didn't call my friends to tell them what the scoop was. And so my friends actually called my house looking for me to see if I wanted to hang out. And my mom was like, oh, I thought she was with you. Anyway, so I'll back up. So
well, wait a minute, girl. You got to know that you got to dial your friends in when you're doing stuff.
I know I was 12 and I was kind of like a little bit of a loner. So I say my three best friends. I mean, like these were literally my only friends. And so she dropped me off at the mall and I remember going in and as soon as I saw him, my stomach just dropped. And one thing that my parents never talked about that we didn't learn in school was sort of like self-advocacy, standing up for yourself. And so I just remember feeling like this shell. And this guy was like, okay, like let's pick a movie to go see. And it was like the olden days when you had to look in newspapers for movie times. And I remember
if I can just stop you,
when
how old was he? Like in
so
real life?
I think in real life, again, I can only remember it through the lens of a 12-year-old. I
Okay.
would say he was like late 20s to mid 30s. And I was 12. And so I met him and I remember just like every red flag in my whole system went up, but I didn't know how to get out of it. I was taught to be polite. I was taught to hug someone when they wanted a hug. I was taught, especially with adults, right? And I was taught if your uncle wants to give you a kiss, you let him give you a kiss because you don't want to be rude. And so I remember be humming and hawing about a movie and being like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't go see a movie because we would have had to get in his car and go to the movie theater. And he was like, you know what, why don't we go watch Planes Land? And I remember just like, even at 12, I was like, I'm going to end up dead. Like, I just knew like that.
I'm not laughing. It's not funny.
It's like, it's a little, my whole podcast is based laughing through trauma. And I remember thinking like, even at 12, I was like, well, nobody ever survives going to watch airplanes land. And so, so I remember just like panicking, but not knowing what I could even do.
What to do, right?
I mean, in hindsight, you know, what I would like to tell a 12-year-old today is like run, scream, kick, punch, like run into a store. I was in a public place with public people and I just felt totally alone. And then he took my hand. I can't remember what the decision of where we were going was, but he took my hand and we were hand in hand walking out of the mall. And my mom started walking towards us.
Awesome.
And I remember just freezing and being like, oh, Mom. And I was like, this is my friend. I can't even remember what his name was. Mark. I was like, this is my friend Mark. I met him online. And I was like trying to be excited. And she was like, oh, okay, well, we've got to get back for that. She made some excuse up. And then we left and like the guy just went the other way. And it's so interesting to think back in hindsight because my mom she was just needed to get me out of there. But we never explored the topic of internet safety.
Oh my gosh. My next question was, what was that conversation like on the car ride home?
I mean, I think to a fault, my family is very good at just sort of sweeping things under the rug and not talking about it. But I think that really is what created this perfect storm of my parents were just hands off enough. Internet was just new enough. And my saving grace is that I messed up and didn't tell my friends about my lie, but had I?
Yeah.
So that was sort of my first crazy experience. And I look now today and I'm like such a psycho for internet safety. Right. I'm sure my 11-year-old niece who's on TikTok I actually got banned from or blocked from my 11-year-old niece's TikTok because I kept reporting her videos. Her mom wouldn't step in. And so I was like, I'm going to report every one of these inappropriate videos. And she finally blocked me. But
got you. Well, I appreciate you. First of all, I appreciate that you're here. Thank God that you weren't, because, usually you got to dial your friends in, girl. But we talked about this in the pre-part of the show that most of the people that are in here now didn't hear. I was watching the news this morning, And there was a story in Montgomery County about a woman who had been stalked and followed because somebody had put something called an Apple tag in her purse. It's a little tiny thing. They showed a picture of it. It's like maybe a little bit bigger than a watch battery. And it's supposed to be so you can find your keys or whatever. But people are literally using it to stalk and follow people. So what happened was she kept getting these iMessages that said a device is connected to you and has been following you for this long. And she really dismissed it until she got home, and the next message that came through is the device is connected to your home network. She looked out the window and there was a car she had never seen before. So I don't know why she went outside, but she went outside and the car peeled off. She called the police and now there's a whole investigation going on. I'm an Android girl, so I don't know about Apple tags or having locations on and all that stuff. So it seems to be that people that do the cyber stalking are using what seem to be legitimate devices to find you, follow you, get to your house. Like, that's crazy to me. I don't know if anybody else has heard that, knows anything about it, but please share if you have.
That's terrifying.
That's terrifying. Like, can you imagine pulling up to your house and you get a message that says there's a device connected to your home network? Because they're already connected to your phone. They literally, when they did a printout, I guess the cops technology division did a printout, and whoever this person was had literally followed her and her friend from the mall to Target. Everywhere they went, this person was going with them until this girl went home.
Wow.
That's crazy. So Diana, you wrote a book, Raising Humans in a Digital World. I just want to ask you why the book, and when you wrote it, what was your intention? What did you want people to
It was
know?
really because of the story we just heard, which I'm still
Mm-hmm.
plucking my jaw off the floor. And
Right.
I mean, oh, wow. There's so many things that can go sideways on the internet, especially when young kids get online too young. And I think about your niece, 11 years old, on TikTok, and it breaks my heart because you're supposed to be 13 to be on TikTok. And
Right.
when I see young kids on it, they put stupid stuff on there because their brains aren't fully developed and they can't think through the consequences of their actions. They don't understand how it's going to impact their digital reputation in the future. And that makes me sad. So I wrote the book primarily just to help parents understand all the harms and all the wonderful things that their kids can engage with online, and to really help them know that it's ages and stages. You should be really aware and what to teach your kids when, before you give them this connected device that's going to connect them to all of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the book is an extension of what we do in schools, because there was no online safety, when we first went online ages ago. And
And
we realized,
is there any more now, Diana? I mean,
well,
really?
you know what, we've kind of gotten past, like, online safety, sort of in educational circles, it's kind of the old school term. Now what we teach kids is digital literacy, because
Okay.
just as much as we want to teach them to be safe online, we want to teach them how to use the internet in powerful and wonderful ways. So this literacy curriculum that we teach to kids starting in 5th or 6th grade basically teaches them, how to be safe and responsible digital citizens. So this idea of a predator contacting them via their games or social media networks, we talk about that so the kids know what to
Okay.
look for, and they know what to say, and they know what to do, and they know how to look out for their friends, so that
Okay.
were that unfortunate situation to happen, they've learned how to address it. And that's really important, to take these things out of the closet and to discuss them in real life. And when
Mm-hmm.
I'm teaching these lessons, I've asked my classes before, how many kids in here have been approached by a stranger online? And I will tell you, every hand goes up. I mean,
Really?
these kids are getting approached by strangers online because that's what the internet is. It's a connected device that connects you to the whole entire world. So, kids, what to do and how to be really savvy about who they're playing games with, who they're
Mm-hmm.
sharing social media posts with, and to
Mm-hmm.
know that behind a screen could be a 10-year-old or a 50-year-old. We really
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
So these are really important conversations to have. And unfortunately, I wrote the book because I was hoping parents would have these conversations with their kids, which they
Mm-hmm.
should. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's too important to leave it to parents who didn't grow up with this stuff. And
Right.
that's why I'm such an advocate for teaching it in school.
Right. Now, I wanted to circle back to the cyberbullying because probably in the last 2 years, to 2019 to now, there have been way too many kids who have taken their lives or have acted out based on a social media beef or somebody hurting their feelings online. And I guess because I was a geeky kid, right? I got bullied a lot. I got chased home from school a lot. It actually helped me in my track career. So I guess when I'm looking at these stories, I'm thinking to myself, but they're really just words. So is it really that bad? But I guess it is, because there are 9 and 10 and 12-year-olds committing suicide because people are picking on them online. People they don't even know in real life.
That's the
So,
thing about cyberbullying. In the old days, when there was no electronic devices, you'd be bullied at school, but you could go home and you could hide in your bedroom. You
right.
can't hide in your bedroom anymore because that bullying can happen 24/7 and it's online and it's permanent. So it's that much more intense for young people.
Yeah.
And when you're young, you can't sort through your feelings as well as you can when you're an adult. So what an adult might brush off for a younger child, it's just so intense and so emotional.
Right.
And if there's one good thing about cyberbullying, it's that a lot of people see it. And so what I'm
Mm-hmm.
really focused on through Cyber Civics is teaching kids what to do when they see someone else being cyberbullied, how to step up and be what we call an upstander, to give comfort to the person, to stand up to the bully,
Okay.
to report it to the social media network. I mean,
Right.
there's so many things we can do to watch out for one another. And kids will do that if they're urged to do that and they're taught how to do that. And they, I don't
Right.
know.
So, in your experience, does reporting it to the social media networks net any satisfaction or protection? Because the research is
Sometimes.
saying that, yeah, not so much.
It really depends on what network you're talking about. Interestingly, games are doing a pretty good job. Like the Roblox and the Minecrafts, those games, they have
Really?
pretty good, which is weird, but I know that from my work, but also I hear it directly from the students I teach, that like I said something and I said this and I didn't even mean it to be mean and I got blocked right away.
Oh,
So they're
right.
very aggressive with both human moderators and their algorithms to catch any kind of cruelty online. I would
Okay.
say by and large, in my view, the social media networks are a little bit behind. I don't think they're doing as
Mm-hmm.
good of a job as they can, but we can't depend on these companies because they're there for one reason, and that's to make
Yep.
money.
Yep.
So our job is to protect our kids, and to protect
Yep.
them is to teach them, how to
Yep.
watch out for each other. And maybe when you report someone being cyberbullied, don't just report it to the social media network, but report it to an adult
To some,
and
yes.
help.
So I want to read a comment from the chat to you guys. Chanel S says a big problem is people can make profiles pretending to be someone else, but it's really the same people bullying at school. So now you have people bullying you at school, and these same people with like 5 other profiles bullying you online too. And schools
Yeah.
don't always take action when kids report it. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to drill down into what can a parent do? Say their child is like just despondent. They're not getting bullied at school, not in real life. But the minute they're online, there's a whole bunch of name calling and you're fat, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, why don't you die? And these kinds of things. Absent just disconnecting totally, what can they do?
The
Real
number
life steps that they can take right now.
The number one thing they can do is whoever it is doing the harassment, they should block that person, unfriend,
Mm-hmm.
unfollow, block, just shut off all communication. I mean, we teach kids a 3-step strategy. Parents can teach this to their kids. Number one, block,
Mm-hmm.
cut off communication. You don't have to put up with that crap. you
Right.
know? Number two, take stock. And what I mean by that is you take a screenshot of the evidence so
Okay.
that you can report it to the network or to an adult. And number three, talk. The third one's talk. So talk
Mm-hmm.
to a trusted adult, talk to a friend, talk to an adult you trust. Just make sure you talk to somebody and don't keep this inside.
Right. Okay. So those are 3 steps, people. Did you hear that? Cyberstalking. Cyberstalking is a whole other animal from cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is kind of, I'm not going to say it's exclusive to the younger people because adults get cyberbullied too and called names and all that. But cyberstalking is predominantly older people, 18 and over, and maybe 16 and up. And I'm going to throw this back to Carling because she has personal experience with cyber stalking and harassment as well. And once she is done telling her story, I'd like for both of you to weigh in on real practical, because what I like to do with this show is not just talk about stuff candidly and open up the box, but also give people solutions, practical steps that they can take when they get off of this live to protect themselves and their loved ones. So, Carlin, if you don't mind sharing your adult
Yeah.
story.
You bet. So even after that harrowing experience, I was married and I left the person because they were abusive. And what I didn't realize was that before I met him, he had spent, I think, 3 years in a federal penitentiary for stalking and harassing women.
Mm,
And I mean, obviously, if he had said that on the first date, I probably would have pieced out, but
right.
he like neglected to say that. And so I left because there was physical and emotional abuse. And then I just thought, oh, 50% of marriages end in divorce. We'll just wipe our hands of this. There's no kids involved. We'll just move on.
Right.
And what I didn't realize was that he had such an extensive history of stalking and harassing women, and being online was a big component of that. And so I can even think back, we met on an online dating platform. And what I thought was sort of serendipitous or like a crazy story to tell the grandkids one day was
Right.
actually probably him stalking me, because his first message to me on the dating platform was, "Hey, I think we live in the same building." And
Oh,
that was based on my profile picture. And I was like, "Oh, like, no, that's actually from a different build. That's my friend's building. I don't live there." And he was like, "No." And he described my building exactly. And I was
oh
like,
wow.
oh, but in my mind, I wanted it to be this big romance. I was like, oh, that's so crazy. And so we started dating. And so after I left him, I unfriended him from Facebook. And over the next, well, going on 10 years, I had everything from he would create fake profiles and start messaging me on social media as different people. So I would block them right away and remove them. And like, they weren't even my friends. They would just show up in my inbox. And I didn't realize that he guessed my password to Facebook. And so he was going in and reading my messages. And I had been using that as a way to communicate with some people about where I was staying and where I was going on a holiday. And
Right.
he would then create a fake email address and email me all of those same details. Oh, I heard you're going here. And that really created for me this sense of, okay, all these people I'm talking to are relaying information, but he was using it as a way to make me believe that, which is really was isolating me.
Right.
And I mean, not just even social media, he hacked into my email. He emailed all of my coworkers, my exes as me, and just saying
Crazy
incredibly
stuff.
inappropriate, like crazy stuff.
Uh,
And so I not only had to worry about like my physical safety, but suddenly I didn't even have online safety.
right.
And I know that's subjective, I guess, but I would delete and block everything as fast as they were coming in. But it got to the point where the police finally said, we really recommend you just go off social media. And I remember listening to last week's episode where they talked about if social media gives this false sense of community. But
Mm-hmm.
for somebody in my situation, I was a domestic abuse victim and I didn't have a lot of physical safety. Not a lot of people knew where I was living because
Right.
he kept finding me. And so that online community was really my only,
Important to you.
it was so important because it was how I was able to stay in touch with people
And
during
not
those
for
times.
nothing, why should you have to?
Well, and that's what I said. And I said, why does it have to
Why
be me
can't you
that
do something
loses?
to him? So,
And
was there anything done?
no, I mean, there was over 15 charges eventually filed, and he spent a bit of time in jail. And but even in terms of the restraining order, it states on it that you can't have direct or indirect contact. And somehow he found out who I was dating, and he sent them a friend request on Facebook. And so I called the police and I said, "Is this not indirect
Right.
contact? There's no way that they would know each other." And
Right.
they said, well, we can't really prove that. Maybe his roommate did it from his computer, or maybe he thought he knew them from something, or so it seemed like I followed all of the things. I blocked everybody. I called the police every time. I took screenshots of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of work for not a lot of
Reward.
justice or reward. And so it's really come down to I'm just very careful about what I put on the internet. And even so far as the podcast, that was really something that I had to weigh the risk of because I'm putting
Right.
myself
Out
publicly
there.
on this
Yep.
out there. And so we're just really cautious about talking about where we've been or where we're going or anything like that. I think it was March 2020 and I found out that he had been watching my Instagram stories, my personal one. I didn't realize I had entered a contest and you had to have a public profile and I forgot to make it private again after the contest was over. And because like it should be my right to enter a contest and
Right.
win, I don't know, a luxury gift basket, but I let my guard down. I forgot to make it private again. And I had been posting where I was going to yoga and where I was working out. And then you can see who has seen your stories. And I was like, oh, shoot, like, okay, now. So now I can never go back to that yoga place. I can never go
Right.
back to that gym.
So this is literally still going on right now.
I mean, it's probably been like a year and a half since I knowingly know anything has happened, but I've also really dialed back the amount of things I put out there.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story, and it is my hope that people that are listening understand when you're online, like nothing is really private. You can try to block everybody you can, but it's so easy to make a fake profile. Law enforcement has not really bought the notion of cyber stalking as being, quote, I'm doing air quotes, a real concern because their thought is, well, they're behind a screen. They're not like banging on your door and knocking your door down. So Diana, in hearing that story and knowing what you know and the research that you've done, what are some best practices that people can do, not only for themselves, but for their children to, I don't know if you can completely eliminate it, because if somebody is focused on you, they're focused on you. And absent law enforcement intervention and really restraining orders are pieces of paper that people ignore all the time. What can people do to enjoy social media? Like Carling said, her community, her tribe is primarily online.
Well, first of all, Carly, I'm so sorry. That is just such a sad and tragic story, and I can't imagine how hard it must be getting through that. So, first of all, I wanted to put that out there, and secondly, I'm just curious well, I don't even want to ask you this question because I was going to ask you what state you're in, but I'll just say broadly, cyber stalking laws are getting better. I'm in California that has, I think, the strictest cyber stalking laws. It sounds like they've sort of failed you, which is unfortunate, but I think that's one thing that people can do is really advocate for these laws to get better, because we should all have the ability and right to use social media for our own personal benefit and not have to give away our social life because someone's a bad actor.
Right.
The bad actors should be the ones paying the price, is my feeling. So I would say number one, really advocate for these laws because they're very important.
I'm in Canada, and I think on some hand our laws are the same, but I think one of the trickiest parts was the police flat out said Facebook is an American company. We're not going to go to Facebook and say, hey, give us the records of all of these profiles. It just wasn't something that they were willing to put the effort into.
And I don't know that Facebook would have anyway.
Yeah, true.
I don't know that they would have. I think
that's a whole nother story.
That's part and parcel to the problem, is that the creators of this machine did not ever have user safety in mind, like ever. Facebook and Instagram and all of that, their business is for business. They're ad driven.
Is Instagram as part of the problem too.
They're not. Users are just data mines for them.
Really look out for ourselves. And again, I go back to what I teach the students, because it goes the same for their parents, is be very particular of who you friend online and off. Your online friends impact you. So what they say when they tag you reflects upon your digital reputation. You want to be super careful who you engage with online and off. So this story really illustrates that sometimes it's out of our hands, but as far as it is under our control, it's important for kids to understand that from the time they start using these devices.
And what age should kids be really like super engaged with social media? I think the standard age to get a profile is 13. I personally think that's too young. I don't think that, at least not a kind of account that opens you up to the world. There are some apps and stuff that don't have chat features and connections to the whole world, like billions and billions of people. But in terms of a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a TikTok, or a Snapchat, what age do you think that children, kids, young adults should be allowed to have a profile just globally? Like, you can't have it if you're not.
That's a question I get asked probably 10 times a day. So I addressed it in my book in the very first chapter. And when someone asks me that question, I say, you should ask yourself 10 questions. Does your child know how to maintain privacy online? Do they know what to do if they're cyberbullied? Do they know what a digital reputation is? Do they know who to report things to when things go wrong? Do they know that I just make a list like, do your kids know all these things? And if they do, then maybe they're ready. If they don't, then they have a lot to learn before you should hand them a connected device, because the price they would pay for making a mistake is way too high. And that's really the reason I think education is so important. I think kids should have all of these kind of lessons under their belts before they engage online. And it's so important to respect the minimum age requirements. All these social media networks is at 13 minimum. And so they do that because of privacy protection laws. But hand in hand with that is the fact that a child is incapable of doing ethical or abstract thinking until 13. Their brain has not developed to that point. And so when they're responding to a predator or posting something inappropriate, it's not their fault. They can't think through the consequences of their actions yet. So
they don't see the big
minimum
picture.
13, and secondarily to that, go through the checklist and make sure that they know all the things they need to know before they start using these devices. I sound like a crazy lady, honestly, when I say this.
No, you don't. You don't. Because there are a lot of parents who make profiles for their children who aren't 13.
Right. I mean, it's like swimming against the tide now to like say this, but it's so logical if you think of all the reasons why. This is like today's it's like what we used to in the old days, like putting a car seat on them, putting them in a car seat or putting a seatbelt on. It's the same thing. You want to give your child the best protection, wait till they're older and teach them how to use it well. And then you're going to save yourself and your child so many headaches.
Because in real life, you wouldn't let your 13-year-old interact with the people that they interact with online.
No. My sister is very different from me, and she's very into appearances, and she very much doesn't see the issue with my 11-year-old niece being on TikTok. And she's in fact in some of the videos that are inappropriate, I think, like some of the dance trends and some of the music trends. And I've taken screenshots before I got blocked. And there's an example of her using the power of blocking to somebody who was just trying to protect her. But I took a screenshot of who was following her. And one of them was called DadBod42. And like, you're telling me that's somebody who's not taking screenshots of these videos? I just... Like, she doesn't, like, my sister just doesn't get it, doesn't see the problem. She thinks it's fun and creative, and
I definitely understand.
I just need to get a copy of that book for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's funny because they say you can report kids under 13 on TikTok. I don't know. I can't guarantee that TikTok will do anything about it, but they do state that you can.
I don't think anything. Like, my niece, I don't think she looks 11, but she certainly doesn't look over 13, I don't think. Or questionably.
If there's an adult doing a video, then the assumption is, oh, it's the adult's page and this kid is just in it, when really it's the kid's page.
They say that they flag underage accounts when people report them. So that's why, I don't know. But it really goes back to, it's up to parents to maybe do a little research and to understand the impact. I mean, body image is a big thing right now with young people.
It is.
It's been all over the news with Instagram, that it contributes to young women feeling poorly about themselves because they're always comparing their bodies to others on these apps without any context, and understanding that people use photo enabling tools to look
filters
better.
And
it just goes on and on. So
and
so many reasons to just have them wait.
And for a kid who has self-esteem issues, body image issues, somebody that's praising them and beautiful this, and this is a stalker that's grooming you for something that you don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, because they don't have the critical thinking skills.
They don't. Honest conversations with kids before you just get them a phone. Because once you hand them a phone, If they're in school with 2 or 3 friends, they're going to be in the bathroom figuring out how to connect them to this, that, and set up a profile. So when my granddaughter was like 12 or 13, she wanted a phone so bad. So bad. No, ma'am, you're not getting it. But then her dad got it for her when she was like 14. Fortunately, she checks the boxes. She able to distinguish this from that. So she was good, but not every kid is.
Right.
And when we're talking about cyberbullying, cyberstalking, harassment, and the stalking can lead to child trafficking and all kinds of other things. These are the things that we have to think about when a kid says, "Oh, mom, can I get a Snapchat or can I get a TikTok or can I have an online account, period?" It's a hard no right now. We can revisit it a couple more years when you're 14 and the age, the number doesn't really matter. It's the kid, because every 14-year-old is not mature enough or aware enough to handle being online, because it's a lot of incoming.
It's not even the kid, it's the education. All the
Mm-hmm.
things they need to learn about so they can deal with all this stuff online. Because it's not just what we're talking about today. It's not just cyberbullying and harassment and
Right.
predators. It's also fake news and
Mm-hmm.
misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
All of
Mm-hmm.
that. That's a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
episode for you.
Yes. I
You
can't
know?
even tell you how many times I've had conversations with my granddaughter and I'm like, where'd you get that from? That's just not accurate.
Right. There's just a lot for kids to deal with. That's why I always say that digital literacy is today's literacy. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
just need them to be literate on this
Yep.
thing that they're reading now, which is the internet. you
Yep.
know?
Because that's where we
So
are.
let's just teach them these lessons so that they can watch out for each other and do better than we've done.
Yep. Because we're not going anywhere. We're not going back. So the
Right.
digital landscape is where we are. The pandemic just exploded that. So this is where we are. So we have to meet them where we are.
Exactly.
And that means the same conversations you had with them about stranger danger in real life are the conversations you need to have with them online.
Right.
If the bullying in real life and cyberbullying, you do the same things. You talk to somebody. You don't hold it in until it makes you want to hurt yourself or somebody else. Go to school and take a gun or do some craziness because somebody is picking on you. And they're same conversations, because bullying has unfortunately been around forever and will probably be around forever. In real life, online, it's there. We just have to do a better job of teaching our kids how to manage that. And if they can't, take the phone, disconnect them.
I can't imagine thinking about how bullied I was in junior high if I had also had Facebook, Instagram, everything that there was today. I never would have been able to escape it. At least I got to leave school and leave the bullying there, but in today's world, it's literally in your pocket
It's in your
24/7.
pocket. And you're supposed to not have your phone with you in school, but these kids do. They're sitting in class on their phones. Hey, Jen.
Hi there,
How are you?
Kristen. I'm good. I'm good.
Good, good,
Thank you so
good.
much, ladies.
I'm
This is
glad you joined us. This is
tremendous.
Jennifer Pochu, aka J.A. Thomas. She wrote a book called Delete Me, 7 Steps to Social Media Abstinence. She was on our episode last week, and I'm glad you chimed in. So what are your
Thank you
thoughts on
so
this
much.
cyberbullying, stalking, and harassment? I know you've got stories for days.
Oh, I could go on. Thank you so much, Diane, for all that you do for your campaign on digital literacy
Oh,
with
thank you.
children, and you never underestimate the work that you do. I
Mm-mm.
wish there had been advocates like you for when I was going through the ropes early on. I had worked for over a decade in the technology space as a program engineer, developer, and applications engineer. And from that time, I've taken a bit of a 180, as they say, and broken off to work with, alongside law enforcement in combating online crimes and mental health conditions that are of direct results of engagement with social media platforms and internet. I just have to applaud you on everything you're doing and continuing
Likewise,
to
for
fight
sure.
for.
So Jennifer, because you work alongside law enforcement in terms of digital crimes and I'm sure some cyberbullying, cyberstalking, harassment. I really would like to give as a takeaway from this episode, if somebody is being stalked online or bullied online, harassed online, anywhere from minor to major, what should they do? I've gotten an answer from everybody else, but I'd like one from you.
It's a difficult question to answer, Kristen. Here at Drug Free, our organization believes in non-engagement, that there exists no balance when it comes to children and adolescents engaging in social media platforms. There's no balance. There's no window between the opportunity for a predator to engage the child unless that window is a door, unless that door is bolted shut.
Mm-hmm.
And while seems very simple to say that and to suggest that your child only intercept and accept friend requests from people whom they met in person, this is oftentimes that comes up in the top 3 safety protocol measures of those that are wanting to engage in social media, but wanting that privacy as well.
Right.
But you take that simple statement, only accept friend requests from people whom you've met in person. That's not as easy as doing that.
Especially when social media gives you like a whole page of people you may know. So if you're a kid, you're like, oh, I think that's my mommy friend, or it's, I don't know what the answer is. I don't.
And even Diane was speaking about how video games take a more proactive approach than social media platforms in mitigating online crime. We've had a series of incidences stem from popular gaming applications, Roblox, Minecraft, in which the predators are luring the children with what they call gaming tokens or prizes for the games that will get the child to a new level. So children as young as 3 years old engage in the Roblox and Minecraft platforms. And in exchange for those items and incentives for the gaming platform, the children are then inundated with lurid nude photographs, asked to take topless photos of themselves in the bathroom of their private parts for exchange for those items, pictures of their bath time and whatnot.
Right.
And so these types of behaviors.
So who's taking these pictures? If you're 4 or 5, who's taking these pictures?
You're taking them yourself. You're taking them yourself. You're using the device that the game application is on. Say I'm 6 years old. I go into the bathroom and take a selfie of myself, a picture of what this stranger online would like to see of myself, because I really want that prize.
You need these parents to do better.
Yeah, and I just really want this, but you can't say, because these games are innocent and oftentimes educational based too. But if there's that chat component, if there's that interception component with another person from another screen who we don't know, then it's a vulnerability. So thus, Drug Free, drugfr33.org, always insists on total abstinence. And it's hard to say and it's hard to do, because the children want to be engaged, the parents want their children to be engaged online. And where do you draw that line? You cut the hand that's feeding it.
Well, that's a question that I'd like to pose to Diana and Carling. Where do you draw the line? Carling, I don't know if you have children. Diana, I don't know if you have children, but...
That's a really hard question to answer, because I can tell you what the research says. Kids that don't have any, and I'm talking teenagers here, I'm not talking little kids, I'm talking teenagers.
Okay.
Teens that don't have access, their mental health is as low as the kids who have too much access. And the reason for that is it's their social life. It's an extension of the school day where they connect with their friends. And especially during the pandemic, teens needed their devices to keep that connection and to escape a really anxiety-filled world. So cutting them off completely is not a viable solution in my mind. Definitely waiting till they're older is. I'm all for cutting off the young ones. I mean, those stories for Minecraft and Roblox make me so sad, because I know those companies employ all kinds of moderators and do algorithms that obviously are not 100% effective. And they're doing a pretty good job compared to a lot of other places that are doing almost nothing. So you can only imagine what's happening out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the older kids, they really need, you can't come off, especially during a pandemic when they're using their devices for school.
See, and that's where I am. I land kind of, I'm not, social media is like the bane of the entire existence, and I'm not, it's like a wonderful thing. I think that it's somewhere in between for an adult. I'm 53 years old. But for a 13 or 14 or 15-year-old, I do see how important it is for my granddaughter. She just turned 15. The pandemic, she's not a super social kid in real life, but online, she kind of was developing some social skills and meeting people that she knew, like from her school, not people that just were random, but developing friendships and stuff like that. So it's like, how do I draw that line for her?
Sure. And
You
I
know what
think
I
that's
mean?
completely fair. And you bring up a good point, Diane, an excellent point, that we're asking for total abstinence from the social media component, the speaking to strangers component.
Right.
And we talked about last week on the show, Kristen, we talked about whittling it down to people, keeping your networks to people and trusted individuals.
Yeah.
And from a law enforcement perspective, the world of worlds is the world that we're trying to prevent the child or the adolescent from accessing, not the world of opportunities and the world of dreams and endeavors, but the world of crime.
Right.
And when we look at social media's inception, as we spoke about in our last podcast,
Right.
as being the hot or not, the comparison model, the
Right.
downward comparison psychology of social media, we're not viewing the bully as a single individual. We're actually viewing the platform itself and the culture, the psychology of the platform itself as being detrimental to mental health. It's not just Jamie and Billy in your math class or in your algebra class that are calling you names. It's everyone. It's a global bullies, and it's incubated. It's inherent to the application's design itself to have that effect on mental health, not just for girls, but for all, boys and girls and purple people eaters. It doesn't matter what you are or what you identify as or what your acronyms are.
It's a tightrope that we walk for adults. And like I said, I'm 53 and I still have to be mindful of engaging and going tit for tat with people. And I've realized I can just scroll past it. I don't have to say nothing. I don't. It's just there. They can post what they want on their wall. It shows up in my feed. I can, I'm going to scroll right past that. I might go back and read it again and get mad, but I'm going to scroll right past it. And I'm certainly not going to engage in name calling and petty tit for tat and back and forth. But there are some adults that do. And so here we go with this whole name call. And now you've got this person's whole 5,000 friends or followers coming for you that turns into bullying. And I don't know. This topic is so vast. It deserves so much more than I can give it in the 1 or 2 episodes that I've devoted to it. But I do think it was an important conversation to have. I think that there are pros and cons to social media in general. Again, we're talking about personal social media use. I use it a lot for business. I don't really know any other way to promote my podcast except for through social media and online. So there's that piece of it. But in terms of cyberbullying, cyber stalking, harassment, intimidation, because we're getting to where I have to start wrapping it up because I don't want to go over the hour. And I'd like just to get last thoughts from Diana and from Carling and then from Jen last as to, again, if you could just reiterate the steps that parents that are listening to this can take away and say, okay, maybe I need to start doing this as it relates to my child's connection. If each of you could give me 2 candid, practical steps that parents can take away, and even for themselves, doesn't have to be for a kid, it can be for themselves. I'd
Well,
appreciate it starting with Diana.
well, thank you. First of all, thanks for having me. And secondly, the
You're
steps
so
are a great
welcome.
way to start. And I think number one, we all probably covered this a lot this last hour, but wait
Yep.
as long as you can to give your kid a connected device. They do not need to be on TikTok at 11. They really
Mm-hmm.
don't. And if they tell you all their friends are, they're not telling you the truth.
Right.
So if you could wait and just make sure that they get some sort of digital literacy education under their belt so that when they do go online, they understand all the wonderful things and all the things they should be aware of when they go online. And we offer a curriculum called Cyber taught in the US and Canada. So if your schools aren't teaching it, I hope that you'll tell them about us because I just think
Advocate
it's so
for it.
important.
And the other thing that I wanted for all of you to chime in on is 3 red flags that a parent or a kid or a tween, a teen, a young adolescent, 3 things that should make them say, wait a minute.
Oh, well, that's, what we tell parents is if your child is unusually depressed or anxious, there's a lot of things right now that are increasing the anxiety levels of
Yeah.
children. But if they're exhibiting any kind of symptoms like that, definitely talk to them about it and find out what the root cause is if you can. If grades are dropping, that's a red flag that you should take a look into what they're doing. And if they're detaching from their friends and they're spending too much time online, that is also a red flag.
So if they're locked up in their room with their phone to their face, as soon as they get home from school until bedtime, that's a red flag.
Yes.
Okay. I got it. Carly?
I would say, honestly, my biggest advice, I think, is taking it offline. And what I try to do with the kids in my life is have the types of conversations about what healthy relationships look like, because I didn't have that. I didn't know what any of that was. So I talk really openly to all of my, I call them my nibblings, all of my nieces and
Okay.
nephews at all ages about like, what does a friend look like? What does a friend mean? And that can translate really well into online things. And once they start getting those boundaries of what does a healthy relationship look like, I think then they start to be able to acknowledge, oh, like I'm online and this doesn't really feel like a healthy relationship because of how I'm feeling and being treated.
Got it.
And in terms of red flags, I mean, I think to Diana's point, if they're hiding away and withdrawing with their devices, I think if they go from telling you everything to telling you nothing. And a big thing I think is teaching kids about secrets. And if somebody's asking you to keep a secret, I think that's something you can teach a kid as young as 1 or 2, because I think that for online predators is a big thing of gaining that child's trust to keep a secret from them.
I agree. Awesome. And Jen?
Those are tremendous, great recommendations, both. I also feel that parents should be wary of identity types of changes or fluctuations in mood and behavior, but also those that go along the lines of looking like a style change, a significant style change.
Like wearing makeup.
Wearing makeup, be aware of who your children are following on a celebrity or fan basis and what those kind of accounts may look like on their social media. Be wary of depression. If your child should actively be keeping a journal to express their emotions. We go into the symptoms of social media addiction as defined in the book Delete Me as a behavioral disorder in which the teen becomes enthralled with social media platforms and is unable to reduce or cease their consumption. And one of the withdrawal symptoms that is symptomatic of the social media addiction is when you take that child's phone away, whether it be for dinner time or just time to get that phone away from them and do some homework, that they become those anxiety symptoms that Diane stresses. Those are very apparent, and a red flag for social media addiction, for internet addiction, is that it's when we start to view social media and internet usage as a toxic substance, as an addictive substance, we see the clear alignment between its overuse, its usage at all, and that of a toxic substance like heroin, like cocaine, like alcohol.
Got it. So before we end, if there's anybody else that wants to chime in, has something to say, this is the time to do it. Anybody? Hello? 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 Carling's story, both of Carling's stories, when I first heard them, I thought, oh, girl, I got to have you on the show. Because I remember AOL and dial-up.
Oh, I'm always
remember.
happy to share my trauma if somebody can learn something from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kiwana, you wanted to say as we wrap this up?
I just wanted to say I learned a whole lot. I mean, usually when people are learning, they're quiet because they're listening and
Yeah.
they're taking in the information. So I got a lot to sip on. So I
Okay.
really appreciate this topic. Thank you.
That was the goal. That was absolutely the goal. We can't solve everything tonight in this hour that we're together or the 2 hours that we spent on this topic, but we at least, it is my hope that the people that are listening tonight and the people that will listen when it goes up, broadcast over all the podcast platforms, that people that are listening are taking notes and saying, maybe I need to rethink my child or even my own relationship with the digital landscape, social media, and what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. Because I swear to God, if I see one more twerk challenge or stupid challenge or any of that, I'm going to pull my eyebrows out one by one, every hair. It's
Okay, we got to
it's too
protect our
much.
brows.
I got to protect my eyebrows, so I need them to stop it. So we are at the end of our hour, and I want to thank Diana Graber and Carling, and I don't know why I forgot. I wanted to call you Whitehead, and it's Middlestead.
That's amazing. I might change it. That
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. For joining me on the show, Jen. I'm always happy when you drop by and give us your little pearls of wisdom. Kiwana, I thank you for joining the show. Everybody in the room, Chanel. Who else is in here? Carla, Dorian, Tisha, Net. Thank you so much for stopping by. And as I say in closing, at the end of every episode, what I want y'all to do, keep it safe, keep it healthy, and keep it candid.